Being a good person sounds like a good thing. Be kind, be helpful, avoid conflict, make others happy. Most of us grow up believing this is the right way to live. But what if being too nice is actually causing problems? Hello and welcome back to Bookworm. Today we're exploring No More Mr. Nice Guy, a book that challenges the idea that being nice always leads to better relationships and a better life. According to this book, people pleasing is often not about kindness, it's about approval. Many people learn to hide their needs, avoid conflict, and try to be liked by everyone. And at first, it seems to work, but over time, something else appears. Frustration, resentment, feeling unappreciated. Stay with me until the end because this book explains why being nice can quietly hold you back and what to do instead. If you enjoy psychology and human behavior, like the video and subscribe to Bookworm. Now let's go deeper.
We're all taught from a very young age to just be nice. It feels like the most basic rule for a good life, doesn't it? If you're good, if you're giving and caring, you'll get all the good stuff back. You'll be happy, you'll be loved. But what if that's not just wrong, but a total myth? Today, we're going to dig into that idea and see how trying so hard to be nice might actually be the one thing stopping you from living a real, authentic life. And our guide for this whole exploration is Dr. Robert Glover's really groundbreaking book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. Now, this book has been around for a while, but its message is just as powerful as ever, maybe even more so. It speaks to so many people who feel like they're doing everything right, but are still left feeling stuck, frustrated, and honestly pretty resentful. I want you to hear this question because it really gets to the heart of the matter. It's what a man named Jason said when he first came to see Dr. Glover. On paper, his life looked perfect, but in reality, he was miserable. He bent over backwards for everyone, avoided any kind of argument, and just tried to make people happy. But instead of appreciation, he got criticism, and he just couldn't understand it. After all he gives, shouldn't he get something back? His question just perfectly captures that painful trap of the nice guy. You do everything for everybody else, and you still end up feeling totally alone. All right, so let's get right into it and start taking apart the big idea that drives this whole thing. Dr. Glover calls it the myth of niceness. And it's like this unwritten script we've all been handed. It sounds perfectly reasonable, but once you look closer, you see it's got some serious flaws. So this right here, this is the core programming. It's the operating system for anyone caught in the people-pleasing trap. It's the simple-looking promise that if you just behave well enough, life will be smooth and problem-free. You put niceness in, and you should get happiness out. But as we're about to find out, this whole emotional formula is just broken. In fact, it often backfires and creates the exact opposite of what you want, leaving you frustrated, resentful, and deeply unhappy. And this myth doesn't just stay an idea. It develops into a very specific psychological pattern, which Dr. Glover named the nice guy syndrome. Now, it's really important to get this. We're not talking about just being a genuinely kind person. This is about a deep-seated, often unconscious strategy for how to live your life. And what's so critical to understand here is that it's a belief system. A nice guy isn't just a guy who does nice things. He's someone who, deep down, believes that he's not good enough just as he is. So for him, survival means hiding his true self, his wants, his mistakes, his real feelings, and putting on a mask, a persona that he hopes will finally win him the approval he craves and keep his world from falling apart. And you can see this belief system pop up in a bunch of really recognizable behaviors. As I list these off, just see if any of them ring a bell. Nice guys are givers, for sure, but as we'll get into, there are usually strings attached. They're also fixers, always jumping in to solve problems, even when no one asks them to. They're constantly looking for approval from others. They will avoid conflict at all costs because it threatens the smooth world they've tried so hard to build. They hide their mistakes, they push down their own feelings, and very often they've made a deliberate choice to be the absolute opposite of their own father, especially if they saw him as angry, absent, or weak. Okay, but here's the twist. This whole carefully built persona of niceness, it has a dark side. Underneath that agreeable, pleasing surface, there's often a whole world of frustration and anger just simmering away. And this is the question every single nice guy asks. Wait a minute. How can being nice possibly be a bad thing? And you know what? It's a totally fair question. All those traits we just listed seem pretty positive. But Dr. Glover argues that the term nice guy is actually not accurate at all, because the way they operate, well, it can make them anything but nice. I mean, just think about it for a second. If your number one goal in life is to keep everyone happy and avoid any kind of conflict, can you ever be truly honest? No way. You're going to say what you think people want to hear. You're going to swallow your real feelings. And you're going to hide any mistake or flaw that you think might make someone upset with you. That's not honesty. It's a performance, and it is exhausting. And because a nice guy feels like his own needs are a huge burden, he almost never asks for what he wants directly. That would be too risky. So what does he do? He uses indirect tactics. He gives in order to get. He tries to manage how everyone else is feeling and reacting just to keep things predictable and calm. And that constant effort to control the outcome is really a form of manipulation. And this is where things can get really ugly. All that giving and not getting what you secretly expect, all those feelings you've pushed down, all that frustration, it has to go somewhere, right? It builds up like a pressure cooker, and eventually it starts leaking out sideways. That's what passive aggression is, showing up late, forgetting to do things, not following through, and sometimes it leads to these sudden explosions of rage that seem to come from absolutely nowhere. Now, the secret engine that powers this whole frustrating cycle of giving and resenting is something Dr. Glover calls the covert contract. This is the absolute core of the nice guy's world. It's a secret, unspoken deal. It sounds like this. I will be the perfect, caring partner, and in return, you will give me the intimacy and appreciation I want. Or, I'll be the most helpful person at work, and you will give me that promotion. The huge problem? The other person never signed the contract. They don't even know it exists. So when they, of course, fail to live up to their end of the deal, the nice guy feels totally cheated and betrayed. And this table just brilliantly lays out the massive difference between what a nice guy does and what real, genuine kindness actually looks like. Nice guys are experts at caretaking. Now, it looks like caring on the surface, but it's not the same thing. Caretaking is about giving what the giver needs to give. Like they'll fix your problem to make their own anxiety go away. It comes from a place of inner emptiness. And it always has those invisible strings of the covert contract attached. Real caring, though, that's about the person receiving it. It comes from a place of fullness, of abundance, and it has zero expectation of getting anything back. So, how in the world does a person get wired up like this? Why would anyone adopt a life strategy that just leads to so much frustration? Well, to figure out the why, we have to rewind. We have to go all the way back to the beginning, to those early years in childhood where these survival patterns first get locked into place. Dr. Glover boils it down to this really powerful three-step process. First, it starts with a sense of abandonment. And look, this doesn't have to be some huge dramatic event. It can be as simple as a child's core needs for attention, for comfort, just not being met consistently. Now, because kids are naturally self-centered, they think everything is their fault. So when their needs aren't met, they don't think, oh, my parents are stressed out. They think, there's something wrong with me. My needs are bad. And that creates this deep, toxic shame. And out of that shame, they build a survival tool, the nice guy persona. It's really just a desperate attempt to hide their own perceived badness and become whatever they think others want them to be, all so they never, ever have to feel abandoned again. So, if being a nice guy is the problem, what on earth is the solution? Well, it's definitely not to just flip the switch and become a total jerk. No, the journey out is a journey towards becoming whole and authentic, what Dr. Glover calls becoming an integrated person. And this is such an important point. Recovering from the nice guy syndrome is not a permission slip to suddenly become selfish and cruel. The actual goal is to become integrated. And what that means is learning to accept all the parts of yourself, your strength, your ambition, your desires, but also your flaws, your mistakes, and your imperfections. It's about finally stopping the act of hiding parts of yourself because you're afraid. This slide just lays out the contrast perfectly. The nice guy's entire life is pointed outwards. He's always looking outside of himself for validation, for a thumbs up. But the integrated person, their life is pointed inwards. They look to themselves for approval. They give because they want to, from a place of having enough, not because of some secret deal. They don't see conflict as a disaster to be avoided, but just a normal part of life that can be handled. And maybe the biggest shift of all, they stop acting like a victim and they start taking full-on responsibility for their own life and their own happiness. So what does the path forward look like? Well, it involves 3 pretty revolutionary steps for a recovering nice guy. First, you have to make your own needs a priority. Now, this is going to feel incredibly selfish and wrong at first, but it is the only way to break that cycle of caretaking and secret contracts. Second, you have to reclaim your own personal power by ditching that victim mentality. And third, and this is the big one, you have to learn to approve of yourself. This is the ultimate goal, to get to a place where the only person's approval you truly need is your own. And that brings us right here to our final and maybe most powerful question. It really gets to the very soul of this whole journey. Just for a second, imagine what it would feel like to take off that heavy armor of people pleasing. Imagine no longer performing or hiding or trying to manage what everyone thinks of you. Imagine just showing up in the world as yourself, authentically and without apology. Who would that person be? What could they do? That right there, that is the journey from being a nice guy to becoming a whole integrated human being. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.
Being nice isn't always honesty. Sometimes it's fear. When you stop seeking approval and start setting boundaries, your life changes. If this made you think, comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Bookworm.